Welcome to the Real Talk with Megan podcast, where we have candid conversations about the things that matter most. I'm your host, Megan, and we're going to deep dive into the topic of mental health. Together, we'll work to destigmatize mental health and start conversations. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and get ready for a real and raw conversation about mental health on the Real Talk with Megan podcast. Well, today we have an amazing episode for you guys that are listening. I'm here with Tori. I am so excited. We kind of had to move some things around, but we're finally here, and I am so excited to hear about her story and just all the things that go along with that. And so, Tori, would you just introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here and talk with Megan today about everything. I think what's gotten me into podcasts is like not only my work, but my personal story. So today I sit, before you as a woman who has multiple psychology degrees. I'm trained in so many different healing modalities, and I live in Beverly Hills in California, but that is not where I began. So I definitely was born in a very different circumstance in the state of Washington to a mother who struggled with addiction. And my father was an alcoholic. He was not in the picture. There was just a lot of trauma and difficulty due to my mother's addiction. And she was married multiple times. We moved all the time. There was so many things. It's hard to describe how much difficulty that created. I left home when I was 17 to
Wow.
go out on my own and take care of myself. I had younger siblings, my little brother that I also took care of. So I grew up really fast. I had a lot of responsibility. And then I still put myself through university. I obtained 3 degrees. I paid cash for all 3 of them.
Wow.
I had already made too much money to qualify for free loans and things of that nature. So I just did it on my own. And then in my 30s, all my family started to pass away from drug overdoses. And so I am the oldest living member of my family. I lost everything in a 10-year period, from both my parents to my older sister to my grandmother to a best friend. I lost my money. I lost my health. So I like to share my story because I think it's a profound example of what we're capable of, how
Yeah.
I've experienced grief that can crack your soul open.
Mm.
And I've been in those dark places. And I think that I've learned not only how to get out of them, but when I speak about the things I speak about, it's not because I read it in a book. It's because I actually had to live it.
Wow. Like, just from the small little snippet you just gave us, like, what a story of resilience to be where you're at right now and to be able to be sharing this with others because, I mean, people may relate to like a piece of your story and, be able to see themselves in that and be able to see somebody who's came through that, which is amazing. And I love that you also have the like knowledge behind a lot of pieces with this and when it comes to mental health and everything, but then you have this personal story that you're sharing as well, so you kind of get the best of both worlds of like being able to well-rounded to share this, and I'm so excited to jump into this conversation, and I really want to just start because like that's a lot that you went through, but like I know you gave us just a snippet, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's the highlight version.
yeah, the highlight reel.
I just like the level of grief I've experienced in my life and loss. It's like it cracks your soul open. Like there's no other way to describe it. It's like when they say like you really fully surrender to like the divine, to God, to like being on your knees. Like I've definitely been in those places. Did I say I got a divorce too during that time, during that 10-year period. So my partner, and luckily, like thank God, we're still very good friends and it was amicable. But we'd been together 20 years when we broke. So
Wow. Yeah, it's such a like a poetic way to say, like, not that any of that stuff was fun,
no, no,
but
no.
like, no, so I don't want to put that out there, but like, just to show the depth of what that feeling must felt like for somebody who hasn't experienced that, or maybe somebody who doesn't have words to what they're going through. That might have just given them some words to understand that, and when you get to that extremely low place of feeling like you've cracked your soul open, there has to be some steps to get back to some form of this healing, like to those very first steps. Can you take us back to kind of what maybe that season of your life or pieces of that looked like for you for those very first steps?
Yeah, I feel like there was different levels of healing for me. Like I had to start healing. Luckily, I started my healing journey before all of that happened, so I already had some tools. So I think if someone's just waking up to like their trauma or the bad things that are
Yeah.
happening to them, the most important thing to realize is that it's not happening to you, it's happening for you.
Mm,
It's really getting out of that victim consciousness. And it's
yeah.
normal, it's human, it's natural to be there. Why is this happening to me? Why is this trying to break me down? Why are these horrible things keep happening to me? That's a very natural thing. And I'm not saying don't feel your feelings. That's the most important thing. All of my wounds have become my greatest wisdom.
Mm,
And so it's looking at that in your own life and saying, like, how can I get support? How can I become aware? And what's one thing I can see right now of how this is going to make me better, how I'm going to grow from it, how I'm going to help someone else?
yeah. And I know for me, like that faith has been such a big part of healing, of going through my own personal journeys and finding faith in that alongside all the learning that I've done, alongside podcasts, alongside books, all of this. But how has even your faith and your relationship with God brought you and shaped your healing journey, and how that kind of shifted and changed in you?
Yeah, that's such a good question because I definitely started out my life not I didn't grow up religious. I didn't have any connection to that. I was actually very logical and
Mm,
clinical ultimately early
yeah.
on, right? A lot of people don't know in modern psychology, Carl Jung and Freud, who is the godfather of modern psychology, they got in a big fight because Freud said it's just the mind and spirit doesn't matter.
Mm,
Like there is no God, there is no like that's not our concern in psychology. And Carl Jung actually said, no, the human spirit and God and that connection is actually the most healing thing.
yeah.
And so that's where they broke paths. And I remember hearing that in like undergraduate, and being like, well, of course it's just the mind. Like we just have to heal it. And, there's all these tools. And so I truly believe in that. Like, but when we blend that psychology with the spirituality, the connection to our higher selves, the connection to God, whatever we want to call it, that's when true healing takes place. Because I started the path through the mind.
Mm,
And that alone does not give you any connection to higher purpose, to meaning, to why does this happen? Otherwise, it's just kind of like my brain is broken.
mhm.
That's kind of how we look at it in psychology, right? Instead of saying like, no, I've been through these really difficult things. Of course I'm struggling. Or this is here to teach me something. That's such a different perspective that helps us heal. And I think when I really started to connect with faith later in my life, because, God really kicked me in the butt and said, like, no, I am here. And I had to have these like almost divine mystical experiences to show me. It had to be like proven. My faith was not untested, obviously.
Mm,
Because, I grew up kind of like looking at the world as like, if there was a God, how could these things happen to me?
yeah.
That's really how I felt. And religion didn't make sense to me. And that connection, I couldn't even use the word God when I was younger because it just didn't, like I said, I was just like, how could the way I grew up, like on welfare with addicts as parents and all these terrible things, like what kind of God would make that happen?
Yeah.
And then I realized it's really our disconnection from the divine that helps us stay in that victim state. It's our faith that helps us see, like, the spiritual work I've done has been more healing to me than probably anything. I
Mm,
really believe in healing, like mind, body, and soul, because
yeah.
it's the soul that's the truth, and the soul is our connection to God. And until we have that, we're not whole. We'll spend our whole lives looking outside of ourselves for something to fix us, and it was hidden inside of us the whole time.
I think I talk about that all the time is when I talk with any clients that I meet with, I'm like, I want you to be a whole person. Like that is, and that's what God wants for us. Like even Jesus talked about in scriptures, like being a whole person as your body, your mind, your spirit, your soul, like all these things. And so there's a bunch of pieces that we have to focus on. It's not just one or the other. And I think we can go to extremes so easily.
Mhm.
And I don't know why. It baffles my mind why we go there so easily, but we do. We go to these extremes. You talked about, not growing up religious, and you kind of went to this extreme on the psychology side, on the mind
The
side.
science. Yeah.
Yeah, the science of it. And then I grew up in the church, and it was anything that dealt with the mind was all spiritual. And I feel like we did such a disservice to completely separate those things
Mhm.
because God made our minds like they work together. So we have the spiritual side and we have the just the knowledge side. And when those things can come together, that is where healing can happen. And a whole healing where you take care of that your mental side and your emotional side, but you're also taking care of your physical side, which helps with your relationships. Like all these things tie together. And I think that when we can come to that middle ground between those things, that is where healing will happen. That is where we see these stories of resilience. We get to hear stories like yours of these things coming together, which is so beautiful to see that endpoint. You have walked through it and how much resilience you have through it, which is that is a beautiful thing to be able to see.
Yeah.
And it gives people hope.
Yes, and that's what I always want to share is that, like, there is hope and you can move forward, and I really do think we can heal anything.
Yeah.
And that's a big piece too, is like you talked about the mind and the soul, but now we know with trauma and difficulty and even chronic stress, it lives in the body.
Mhm.
And so until we access that, I always say, like, my job is to bring heaven to earth, to ground it in my physical body, to get my nervous system calm.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we're always in a state of fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We're in
Oh,
this
yeah.
like negative state and we can't make good decisions. We physically are reactive
Mhm.
because all of our pain is living in our body. So that was like a big thing I learned. Like for me, I started with body. Like I started doing like more of the physical yoga and like breath work and like that is what calmed my physical body. Then I was learning the psychology at the about same time, and then I really got into the spirituality later. But I feel like for each of your listeners, it's like finding the entry point is
Mm.
going to be different for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people, their mind's going to be heavy. They're going to struggle with the mental health. So you start there. You start with the mind.
Right.
For other people, if they are feeling, and that's like anxiety, depression, racing thoughts, chronic worry, then start with the mind. That's where you're being called to enter your healing phase. If it's your body, you're going to have illness. You're going to have a lot of tension in your body. You're going to have tight shoulders. You're going to
Mm.
be grinding your teeth. Your body's trying to get your attention. Your body's saying like, pay attention to me. I am the path to your healing. And that's like walks in nature, taking care of yourself, getting your exercise,
Mhm.
eating well, reducing your stress load, through physical movement. And then there's the soul. And we know that the soul is crying for you when you don't feel aligned with your truths. You don't feel happy. You don't feel like you have a purpose. You don't feel like anyone cares about you or what you're doing in the world.
It ties in so well together, and that's we talked a little bit right before, that's, like, the heart of why I did this podcast, why I started it, is to start those conversations, to let people see that, like, they're not the only people struggling, that they're not alone in this, like,
Mm-mm.
we everyone has something, like, everyone is dealing with something. Some may seem a lot, like, bigger than others, but if it's big to you, then that's a big piece in your life, and that's something to make sure that you and I say this every time, like, find somebody to talk to, whether it's a safe person, but, like, whether it's a professional or it's a friend or a family member, like, someone who's safe, that you can talk through these things because we're not meant to just hold it in because, like you said, like, that's where we start to, like even if it's, mentally or emotionally, if you start holding that in, like, it comes out physically, it comes out these
It
ways,
does.
and that can throw you into a whole bunch of things, like, our body is so intricate, and the way that it's all connected is amazing. It comes out, and it usually comes out at the worst times.
It does, and it starts coming out, like, emotionally, but the more especially with women, well, there's a lot of research on this now, and so same thing with me, I have anyone who's listening who has autoimmune,
Mm,
so that's psoriasis, IBS, anything where your immune system is attacking your body, that is mental and emotional.
mm,
There's a
yeah.
huge piece around boundaries and self-care that is missing, and
Mhm,
people with autoimmune, especially things like fibromyalgia, those women are typically very nice and overgiving.
mm,
So if you've got an autoimmune, that means your body is hyper reactive to you not taking care of yourself and it's trying to protect you. And so, like, I have psoriasis, I have it completely managed. I don't have to take medication for it. I still get spots, but it's because I've done the work. And it's not to say that we heal these things 100%, but I just want to point out because a lot of people don't know that these things are so intricately connected, like you're
yeah.
talking about. Like what we repress Like, I love that says, like, what your mind won't deal with, your body has to.
Yeah,
And so it's like that has to go somewhere. There's so many things that I see directly correlated psychologically that a lot of people don't know that that's what they're doing or that's why they're doing it. But like in my practice, I always get to root cause even of physical ailments.
that's awesome. That like is so helpful for people, I'm sure, that you're working with, that you can find those things out and get to the root of it, which is gonna help in the overall, rather than just trying to like put a Band-Aid over it.
Yes, it's like, yeah, it's like, like let's say you're grinding your teeth, which I used to do. But like, it might be seem like it's such a simple thing, but you have like this tension all the time, right? And so it's like you go to a medical doctor and they're like, "Oh, well, we can give you muscle relaxers." It's like, well, that will be a temporary relief to a very long-term problem, and your body will just find another way to get your attention.
Yeah.
Your body's never trying to betray you or hurt you. It's trying to tell you, like, we've got something going on and we want your attention.
Yeah. So it's like moral of the story, if there's something going on and it's not being fixed with little things here and there, like go deeper. Sometimes they can be from unhealed trauma. You mentioned that just a little bit, but when you have unhealed trauma and you haven't processed it, you haven't walked through it, you haven't found coping mechanisms, any of those things, it does come out in those physical ways. It doesn't stay hidden. It'll be it'll be present and in your life in one way or another.
Absolutely.
How does it show up that you have seen in either connecting or disconnecting from people? Kind of hit on relationships, even though if we're not fully aware of it.
Yeah, so I love to redefine trauma too, because obviously you hear my story and you know that's trauma, right?
Right.
That's what we think of. We think of these terrible things like being assaulted, being abused. Yes, those are definitely traumas. But trauma is also any time that you felt disconnected from safety.
Mm,
That means that maybe you had a parent that ignored your needs. That means maybe you had a critical parent. That means maybe you had a coach that always put you down. Like there's a lot of different forms of trauma. And just because your story doesn't look like mine doesn't mean you're not traumatized. Is essentially what I like to tell people. Like, yes, my story is extreme. It is. And it's
mm.
it's honestly unrelatable for most people. I get that.
Yeah.
But that was my divine design to get people's attention. So for each person, how do you know that you're dealing with
Mm,
probably unresolved trauma? There's a lot of people pleasing, perfectionism, control issues, health issues. They're going to show up as like gut,
mm,
stress related issues, but it's really going to be in your lack of boundaries, how you're going to have a hard time saying no. You're going to not feel safe being vulnerable, speaking out for your needs, saying what you want. You're going to have a lot of guilt around asking for your needs to be met or even thinking of yourself. And these are more prone to women. They show up a little bit different in men.
yeah.
It's just like to be more stereotypical, I guess.
Mm,
But within women, yeah, the biggest ones I see are like not feeling safe in relationships, feeling pretty reactive, having a lot of perfectionism, a lot of control, people pleasing, wanting to be good all the time. It can show up in different ways. There's some people go really what we call hyper independent, where they don't need anybody,
mm,
and then other people go super clingy. So it's really the same issues showing up in different ways. We've all found a way to stay safe,
mm.
and for some people, that's pushing people away, and for other people, it's holding them close. There's all different kinds of explanations,
Yeah.
but I find that if you're kind of experiencing these turbulences in your relationships, or like you feel overly reactive or overly sensitive, or you get triggered a lot, like you're struggling with perfectionism, not feeling like you're enough, people pleasing, like you just can't make people happy enough. You got some stuff to heal there.
People who are dealing with that, just not feeling safe in relationships, what would be something that you would say would be helpful as like how do they start rebuilding that to rebuild safety
Yeah.
in their life and in their relationships?
So the very simplest thing that you can research and like take tests online and try to figure out and just be radically honest with yourself, all change starts with awareness.
Mm,
So being aware of the problem and saying like, okay, this isn't working for me. And then learning what is my attachment style?
mm,
It's a big thing in psychology, but it's going
yeah,
to tell you, are you anxious? Are you avoidant? Are you ambivalent? There's these different styles. And so that's like a simple thing you can start learning to yourself. Like, okay, like I'm an avoidant attacher. I push people away. I can do these things. And it doesn't mean it's going to explain all of it. You'll start to have some self-understanding, which will give you back some of your power.
yeah.
Like when you have that awareness, you can make new choices. Then you can start saying like, what are the things I need to do to start healing that? And then the second thing I always have my clients do is look at your triggers. Your triggers are your teachers.
Mm,
When someone triggers you, that means they're pressing on a button.
Mm,
And your job is not to say, hey, stop pushing that button. Your job is to uninstall the button
mm,
so that no one else has got the power over you to spin you out and to put you in that place again.
yeah,
Because what happens that we don't recognize is that that trigger is trying to show me the wound that needs to be healed.
mm,
It's not saying that other person's mean. And yes, we need to deal with that person and all that type of thing. But like, let's say I have a really critical mother, and I'm just using an example that happens often. And she always talked about our body and our weight and our hair and if we were pretty enough. And then we end up finding a partner who, guess what? They're kind of critical too. Maybe they do it a different way. But what happens is every time he says something to me, now it's bringing up all that pain with it. It's
yeah,
not just what he's saying. And so it's like I have to, maybe talk to my partner about what they're saying and that's hurtful, but also deal with the core issue, which was all the messages I got about myself, my looks, my body, about being good enough.
you know,
And until I heal that, no matter what someone says, I'll always see it through that lens. It's kind of like that energy of like, your husband says, "Oh, you look pretty today."
mhm,
And you say, "What? I don't look pretty every day."
yeah,
Because it's like we're not seeing it clearly. We're seeing it through our wounded lens
right,
of ourselves. It's like one of my wounds growing up because I went to so many schools and I didn't come from a good family, all
mm,
these kinds of things. I was like, I was always afraid I wasn't smart enough.
mm,
And so anytime someone would say something to me when I was younger that made me feel like I was wrong or like I didn't get a good grade, like it would spin me out.
yeah,
And then I actually got to college and I took IQ tests and I'm very intelligent.
mm,
I had no clue.
wow,
So it's not even the reality. That's what I always want to tell people. Like I live in Los Angeles. Like I work with some of the most beautiful people on the planet and they don't see it. So we don't see ourselves clearly when we're in our trauma loops.
yeah, and that's such a great reminder to have put in front of you of keeping that perspective, like, putting that next to reality, like, putting what is being said or a look or a comment, whatever it may be, putting that next to reality to bring some truth to it. Because yeah, we view things through a different lens, than sometimes the way other people do see us or the way that we really
Oh,
are.
for sure.
Yeah.
Imagine if we all saw ourselves the way that like our bestest friend in the world
Yeah.
does.
Oh, yeah. It's that phrase of, like, somebody says something and you say like, something negative about yourself, and you're like, "Would you say that to your best friend? Would you let them say that?"
Yeah, or your child. Yeah, it's like, no, never.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, but I'll say it to myself.
Yeah.
And so, to kinda change we're going we have relationships and we talked about from the outside, like, with other people, but then there's a whole other piece of, like, regaining so you're rebuilding trust with others, but regaining the trust with yourself.
Yep.
If you wanna dive into that just a little bit, because I think that's a huge piece.
Yeah. So that's such a key piece. I always say trust starts within. You
Mm,
have to trust yourself first because it's the only way you trust yourself with others.
yeah.
Like if someone has violated you, the only way you ever have trust with them again is if you trust yourself to walk away when you need to. And if you don't, then you can't. How do we stop trusting ourselves? Well, imagine if anyone on the planet told you every day they're going to do something and they didn't. Would you trust them anymore?
Mm,
No. But that's what we do to ourselves every day.
yeah.
I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to call my mom. Whatever it
Mhm.
is we say we're going to do and then we don't do. So, number one, to start like small steps to just right today, start trusting yourself more
Yeah.
and start rebuilding that muscle. Sometimes I have clients who are so lacking in self trust that I have to have every couple hours, I have to have them turn inward and say, am I tired? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? What do I need right now? Because they've been so used to focusing on everyone else their whole lives. And so, like, that's a big way of rebuilding self trust. And then getting clear on, like, who am I really outside of the expectations of everyone? What do I really want? And just taking small steps towards that. But self trust is such a huge thing. And it takes getting a little bit of like reckoning with where you've not trusted
Mm,
yourself. Like, I truly believe that our intuition is the way God speaks to us, and we do not pay attention to it. And we use logic to get rid of it.
yeah.
Like 99% of the time, I can say, like, when was a time that you kind of knew that person wasn't quite right, or you knew that guy wasn't quite it, and it still happens to me. Like, there's times I will not listen to my intuition and it always backfires.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's hard because we don't trust ourselves and everyone told us not to, and we made mistakes, and that's human.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the perfect way to say that. It's human. We are human, and we live in a fallen, broken world, and it sucks.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're spot on with the only way we can hear from God and, like, we can't hear when the chaos is completely around us, when all the
Mhm.
things it's like you're in the, like, eye of a hurricane, like, it may feel, like, a little still, but, like, everything is spiraling around you. So, there's no way, like you can receive or hear from him with all that going on. It would be like trying to listen to 14 songs at one time and pick out one lyric from one specific song. It's just not possible. But when you can like find that inner peace, like beginning to trust yourself again, all of that, that's when you can start to hear from him. That's when you are at least open to that.
And it's only in the silence. Because, like, prayer is when you talk to God, meditation is when he talks to you.
Mm. Yeah.
And so you've gotta have that quiet time. And it doesn't have to be traditional meditation. I'm a big meditator,
Yeah.
but it can be, quiet time in nature.
Yeah.
It can be sitting on your back porch with a cup of coffee, just, like, with yourself.
Yeah, that honestly, nature is one of my favorite places to be able to connect with God. Like, I love to go
Mhm.
hiking and we'll go out and then I just kind of go off and I'm like, yes, like in creation, then literally that's grounding because like you're
Mhm.
you're in touch with nature and it brings a different, I don't know, level of something. There is like such a peace about it. Yeah, but it's different for everybody. Where you
For
even
sure.
you talked about that before, like in different situations, how you heal or how you find that, how you step into it might come from different places. It's the same way. Like you're going to have different ways that you're going to connect more or you're going to find your healing. And so that's why it's so important to talk about it.
Yes.
So we're getting ready to wrap up and I feel like I could talk to you for so much longer. I was like, we just barely touched the surface. I felt like it went so fast, but I do want to kinda wrap this episode up of just what would be something as an encouragement as you're sharing, you shared your story, a little bit of it, and just, like, hope to give to someone who might be listening, who might be going through that really dark time, might be in the deepest valley, just something that can help them along the way, to step into their healing journey even.
Yeah, it's like, first of all foremost, I know it's scary.
Mm.
I know it seems like it's gonna be really hard, but trust me, where you're at's way harder. It's not going to last. And whatever's breaking down, no matter how painful it is, and I don't say this from, again, not experiencing the breakdown of my marriage, my health, my money, whatever it is, I lost it all. At one point, I had to rebuild it all.
Mhm.
Is to look for that support, like you were saying. Like, remember, we are not designed to be alone. We are hardwired for connection.
Yeah.
One of the best things to do is to reach out, feel your feelings.
Mhm.
Remember, it will not last forever, even though it feels like it will. And to find one reason to get out of bed every day.
Mm.
And that might be helping someone else. I know the biggest thing that got me through that 10-year period of my life was that I did this work and that every day I had people that I could
Mm.
focus on helping them. And that's God working through us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, and just sharing your knowledge too, because
Oh,
you
thank
had a lot of good pieces in there that I hope people are able to take from and, step into their healing journey. And if you're listening and you want to connect with Tori, I'll put her links in the show notes so you can find her. But man, thank you so much. I'm like, I want to go into so much more, but I know
you. Maybe part 2.
maybe part 2, we might have to figure that out, but I really do. I appreciate you for being on here, and I'm really thankful that you were a part of this.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Real Talk with Megan. Remember, you are not alone. Seeking help is a sign of strength, and taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your physical health. We'll see you next time for more honest conversations.